From cities Paris to New York, and now here in London and its busiest street, Oxford Street, there's the latest in bodycon dresses, secret sales, and the ability to shop from your fingertips. It's no wonder the UK spent approximately £57.7 billion in 2015. But as Western consumers continue to indulge in big name brands including Boohoo, Dorothy Perkins and Ralph Lauren, the real question is, who makes our clothing and what is the real truth behind the label? While the average UK citizen is said to spend just over £1,000 a year on clothing, it may surprise you to learn that £30 billion worth of clothing in the UK alone is thrown away, including your old t-shirts, your old jeans, while the thought of who made the clothing and the time it took isn't even considered. Having recently watched Panorama on BBC One, the extent of our waste was shown.
You can see there, just across the street, what we think is the middleman, selecting his crew for today's work. The chosen ones get on the bus. The youngest is just 15 years old. They're dropped off at a factory that makes clothes for the British High Street. They don't have work permits, so they can only work illegally. Can I see the labels?
I have the labels with me.
That's Marks and Spencer. That's an iconic British brand.
Taking a look inside my own wardrobe at home, I began to question who and where the clothing I had brought was made from, the individuals who put them together, and if they had been put together in an ethical manner. Were they too refugees? BBC Panorama also had me thinking one step further. Had the brands I'd been buying for years been using ethically sourced materials, or had they been using illegal immigrants to make their clothing knowingly? From Ralph Lauren to Topshop, what does a clothing label really tell you about the product, other than maybe the name or the size that you're ordering? I've never once looked at a garment I own and thought, who made this? Especially since a lot of my clothing still has the labels on. But there's a company that are changing that. Bring on the fashion revolution. Launching in the year 2013, along with their hashtag who made my clothes, the fashion revolution described themselves as a global movement, striving to bring awareness to the public about factory conditions and treatment of workers in foreign countries, following the 2013 Rana Plaza collapse in Bangladesh. Alongside brands such as H&M, the fashion revolution is changing the face of fashion forever by giving a name to the individuals who make the garments. In a recent Q&A carried out by Fashion Revolution founder Carrie Summers, she emphasised the want to ignite a revolution to radically change the way our clothes are sourced. The fact that many in the West no longer know who makes their clothes and at what cost the clothing is made. The fact that 48% of brands hadn't tracked the factories where their garments were made. 75% of them didn't know where the fabrics had come from. The fact that 91% did not know where the raw materials had come from. I took to Google in search of ethical clothing shops in London to find out what was out there in terms of ethical clothing that was sustainable and safe for the person that makes it. With the Sustainable Fashion Guide to London, I scanned through the majority of the list to find Komodo, a natural fibre fashion range that started in 1988. Having had a look at their range of ethical clothing online, I also came across their Instagram, which showed them supporting the fashion revolution. Today, I've arrived in Primrose Hill, London to speak to eco-fashion friendly brand Komodo about why sustainable fashion is so important. Let's go and find out what they have to say about where their clothing is from and why is it so important to buy ethically. Why do you think the fashion industry is so built on using cheap labour rather than manufacturing in a ethical or moral way?
Well, the fashion industry or the garment industry needs, or it always looks for cheap supply. You know, everybody wants to make the most profit. It's quite a, I don't know if it's unique to the fashion industry, but people are greedy. They want as much profit as they can get, and if you can make something for a little bit cheaper, then people look to do that.
Fashion Revolution is obviously something that you follow online. It's a great organisation. They've got a great hashtag.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that something that you follow online, and why is it so important when it comes to ethical and sustainable clothing?
Well, I mean, it was a tragic and huge event that happened, and we were all shocked. I mean, you saw the whole country was shocked. I wasn't entirely shocked because these things have happened before, to not quite the same scale and degree. but we knew that this was, going on. And, because the public, the news companies covered it so strongly, it obviously provided the opportunity for us to support, the movement for improving conditions, because, there are some awful conditions out there. We go and visit the factories. I mean, we're going next week out to Nepal, China. We want to see where our stuff's being made and meet the people and, work with them. I mean, it's an ongoing process every season. You need to sit down and, to get the styles right, it takes quite a lot of work. And, we work with the cutting masters and the pattern makers and the sample machinists. We can make a huge difference with our conscious choices, and, ethical companies that trade fairly and use sustainable materials and organic and so forth. It's going to have a positive impact, of course it is.
Well, there you have it. There's the real truth behind the label. The fact that there's companies out there that are working ethically to work with the people that make our clothing for the better.
Okay, you see, it wasn't man's original sin, creating a pan-global dustbin. But now we've got to take stock. Necessity must inspire a new life for those old rags and a motorbike tire. Mother Nature is tired and she's singing the blues. So take a walk on the wild side in your Komodo sand shoes.